Okay, hi again. So I guess I'm going to introduce Vievee Francis, our featured poet tonight, and the reason for this incredible celebration. Woo! I do want to let you know that we're recording this. JAM operates local cable channels, and we consider ourselves oral historians of life in the Upper Valley, and we're really honored to add this poetry reading and music performance to the record of life here. And we really want to change the story of the Upper Valley, and Vievee is helping us to do this. And she envisioned a night of Black music and poetry that would feel like home for her. And I think she's helped all of us feel at home in her home. So big round of applause and thanks to Vievee. I'm not going to try to do the official biographical intro because you can read so much about her. She's so accomplished. And if you don't know about her, please do read up and buy her latest book that brings us here together. But I want to just say that when Vievee and our staff were planning this, and she had just recently returned from Texas, she said something that really lodged in my heart because I have lived in Mississippi and have an important relationship there, but I'm from here, and I've always felt like these were two worlds that I didn't know how to pull together. But I know that Vievee has experienced that very deeply too, and she expressed that on returning from Texas this spring, she really feels like she wants this to be her forever home. And that moved me so deeply and really made me think about the way that we're forging a new culture here together through the arts. And because of her inspiration, we were able to invite the Johnsons to come up from Mississippi and bring Mississippi here. So without further ado, Vievee, would you come on up and razzle-dazzle us?
I simply cannot tell you how happy I am right now. The book is called The Shared World, and Sam has given me an opportunity to share my world with the people here that I've come to love. And I just couldn't ask for more than this. I'm going to go ahead and read, and I'm going to do my thank yous last, because if I do my thank yous now, I'll start to weep and moan. You all don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. And you'll forgive me if I'm squinting. I had cataract surgery recently, so I'm adjusting to the lights here. Break me, and I'll sing. My voice like marrow, a blood yolk spilled upon the counter. You can't stop this song. More hands than yours have closed around my throat. You may crack me. You have cracked me. I'm frightened, but so what? I'll testify. Witness if you can. Listen, I slurped the frog leg soup gone bad, held a brass spoon like a barrel to my mouth. I could tell you what you want to hear, but I'd be broken just the same, so why not sing? I'm singing now, louder this time, and in the round. We are a wounding of red-plumed birds, every voice a bloody feather in the bone crown. I was asked by poet David Martinez when I was going to stop keening, lamenting, writing these sorrow songs. And I told him that's what I do, that's my role. I'm going to keen until the day I die. So a lot of these songs or poems are sorrowful, but some aren't. I've got a little humor there too, right? But this particular poem, I reworked in 2020. It's called When Your Brother Dies, You Want. When your brother dies, you want nothing more than to be held by your brother. And within that absence, to be held by any. It will take that to cry it through. And if there is no one to do so, if there is an embrace, but it doesn't last long enough, you may never feel the joy of wailing. Instead, you may hold on to that cry for years, until no one knows you needed to cry at all, until you believe you are free of tears, until one day standing at the sink, the water running hot over your knuckles, you double over, and that long-held cry escapes in a gasp, a memory of that other body in convulsions, the sick bed or the street. The smell of death so close, you forget there are people with you in the room and you almost let go. Before you are reminded that day is done and there is work to do before you. So you straighten up and continue to do whatever it was you were doing. Close that valve of ache and swallow whatever came up. Ugly fruit. Oh, I'm gonna ask you actually not to clap because I am so easily distracted, squirrel. You know, I'm just gonna go with it. Or I'm gonna stand here and smile like, please clap more, because I get addicted. So we'll wait till the end. Ugly fruit. I have a memoir coming out, and the memoir is called Ugly. And I've been called ugly all of my life. And I decided finally just to talk it out, work it through these poems. And this is called Ugly Fruit. It opens with an epigraph, a conversation between myself and a friend. I just need to know you don't think I'm ugly, I said. Okay already, you're not ugly, which of course meant he thought I was. Not knowing is worse. I said, but didn't mean it. It's just as bad knowing, which means this ending. My abandon often leads to abandonment, so I bury my face in the bristling hawthorn. Did I tell you everybody is beckoning to me? Even in loss, I can't help but admire the rough jaw, the knee reddened from falling, a shoulder plump as a dewy kumquat, and cheeks I could kiss and. There was a woman whose mother had burned her legs, the calves fire-licked. I still remember the touch of them. I took off her shoes. I put my hands under the thick socks. She cried at the feel of someone's hands. When I am abandoned, I wonder what I lack. I know what I lack. My friends note I'm not ugly, sure, like giving a bonus to the doorman or an extra week's vacation to the maid. You feel generous, but the door keeps being opened and shut, and the dishes get cleaned anyway. There are scars that can't be seen. I want them touched, but there are more scars than hands willing. An acquaintance fears her neighbor's amputated arms. A waiter gets bullied for hair that doesn't fall upon his shoulders but moves out and up in mat from his head. Call someone ugly for any reason, and my chest hurts as if punched. I don't always see it coming, and I don't see the point because it is so often all too fucking beautiful to me. All of you. The ravaged and the torn, the denied and the haunted. Desire bristles in me just the same. Does want get befuddled by cruelty, by abandonment, like bruised fruit in a grocery store bin? I can't always name the fruit. I pick them up anyway. Use them in a soup, a salad, unadorned in a spoon. Uneasy on the eye. Someone threw them out, as if the eye was made to always be free of tears, as if the eye was made to look away instead of toward. Marvin Gaye, Mercy. So, some of you know I've got this ink here. So, I lived in Detroit for 30 years. You can't live in Detroit and not love Marvin Gaye or something's wrong with you, right? Marvin Gaye, Mercy. Take Marvin Gaye. His father had no mercy. Paranoia does that. Mercy is spat like spinach between the teeth. It slips out in a peace stream. Those without it have lost it by adulthood, flatline. It is replaced by a thin-lipped smile of rage. And with mercy goes empathy. But Marvin wanted mercy so badly from a man who didn't have it to give, as if all he once had now rested in Marvin, so who wouldn't be jealous? To see your better self, to hear all that beauty wafting out of every car window, sweet as cigarette smoke. I don't trust those who don't like the smell of cigarette smoke. Orthodoxy. That was the gun in his daddy's hand. It said, don't do this and don't do that. And the only goodness is to wither on your own vine. But how could a man in the flowering of his life, so much abundance, let it go? He needed and he lost. Lost to the one always praying who should have repented, whose sins, if there are sins, were all there to be seen as that bullet that set aside Marvin's flesh. I imagine it differently. It soothes me to do so. Marvin spent in his father's arms after a cruel night. Envy replaced by pride in the sun. His own wintry pride displaced by love. See, even you can't stand such sentiment. So how much harder was it for Mr. Gaye on his high horse over his son, stomping down the seed? I've been thinking about love again. Those who live to have it and those who live to give it. Of course, there are those for whom both are true, but never in the same measure. Those who have it to give are like cardinals in the snow, so easy and beautifully lit. Some are rabbits, hard to see except for those who would prey upon them. All that softness and quaking and blood. Those who want it cannot be satisfied, eagle-eyed, and with such talons any furred thing will do. So easy to rip out a heart when it's throbbing so hard. I wander out into the winter. I know what I am. I want to read this poem if I can find it. Let me see here. I'm going to read a poem about chitlins. Anybody know what chitlins are? A couple of you know what chitlins are. Pig intestines. That's an acquired taste. I grew up in part, off and on in rural Texas, and man, my father and I would fight over chitlins. And his father made the best. So the title of this poem is, I am the only one I know who can cook them. And my grandpa was in fact known for several counties round for his way with a pot. So, after hearing the great poet read about chitlins, I cried in my car for an hour without succor. I had said, I get your poems, and not many of us will still bite into chitlins anymore, and you and I are covering similar territory in our poems. But the poet heard a local and was busy signing books while I was busy being embarrassed. I was no yokel, but there I was with my sun-mottled face and my memories of ham-hocked collards and the cloy of cornbread and yams like a cologne coming off my skin, betraying my background of juke joints and longhorns, Texas-born. Think of Sulphur 8, the Christmas coon, the roasting hose and rusting spades. But I'm the kind of goat that means to get up the goddamn mountain, no matter what howls or rips into me. So years later, when the great poet, having got to know me, whispered, I'm gonna take you to my secret barbecue joint, I knew I was not off the mark, that we held in common a kind of heat, brine from the mason jar, hot gem, whatever slides easily from the bone, and anyone Texas-born like myself knows the secret joint is the for real God Almighty sauce, where there's mud on the floor, and the pork smells like the lover you wish you had, or do. where there's a fan overhead and it ain't cooling nothing down. And you know your uncle would love the place, so he don't need to know. Neither does your daddy. Where, as you spoon up peppers, your tongue remembers itself, and the vernacular you had let go. That real talk climbs your leg like a good bitch lost to a hound, or down your spine like a red ant under the collar. And then you come back to your true self. Know yourself for the earthy motherfucker you are. Ain't that right, though? You'll leave this place stained and smoked and grateful you stayed so long, where nobody blinks when a bit of brisket is spit accidentally through the gap of a smile, where no one is embarrassed by what they must eat or love to. My dolls were just that. West Texas Panhandle, winter 1971. 1. Dolls. To think those 8 blonde heads, 4 on either side of mine, might protect me. Those night terrors that presaged later terrors equally dark would not be stopped by their hard plastic heads, whose chewed pink scalps were, why would they save my body, brown as it was, animate, soft? They didn't love me, I loved them. I brushed their hair, and they expected me to. I rubbed their legs between my own, but only I came. They were pretend, but I never pretended. I privileged them and served them tea and cookies when I could sneak them into my bedroom, which my mother insisted I keep clean and crumb-free. I was crumbling, and my dolls could not stop it. They sat up straight as plastic soldiers on the pillows as I held vanilla wafers to their mouths. 2. Cotton candy. The old woman from Georgia or some southern place touched my hair at the cafe and said, and I was obliged, saying, "Yeah, more cotton than wool, you're right." Then I immediately thought of the flaxen hair of my old dolls, now in the basement of memory, which I washed and cut with my tiny hairdresser fingers, while I waited for my breasts to grow straight out and my own hair to grow straight down. I'm losing the thread of my recollections, so you probably can't follow me. Yes, rabbit holes. There were so many back there in West Texas, and so many Alices everywhere, so popular. One year there was a rabbit infestation, but I've told you about that. I didn't tell you how many girls followed them down, down, down. I'm repeating myself. I wanted a rabbit too, a fluffy white one with a pocket watch. But these were wild hares, and some were rabbit, but I didn't believe that. Tens of thousands of them in Amarillo, Texas, with their long ears and raggedy bodies. I was so drawn to them, no one cared what hole I fell down. I looked under the bed every night, so scared, and held my dolls close, squeezing them into my ribs as if they could ward off whatever came for me. And when it did, they were nowhere to be found. Marvin Gaye, Sugar. You know when I say sugar like that, it's gonna be good, right? Sugar. I like a troubled man. I mean to say, if a man's in troubled waters, I'll want to tread them. Poets, musicians, fucked up thinkers, mean motherfuckers. Marriage did not end the propensity. Give me a feral cat to bathe in the sink, to blow dry and pet. My grandmother was a lover of people her whole life. A drifter on her back porch could eat her good food from a pie tin. Dust everywhere but in her house. She said, "Honey, you gotta love peoples when they down." So I make pies and feed them to my husband. He won't let strangers near our flat, so I feed friends. I love until there's no love left. My friends lick the tin plate. I pick at the crumbs. Strangers leave a tin plate clean. Love better. Don't leave me to fall apart. I've parted the hair of my girlfriends with a lick of grease while Marvin Gaye heated the room alongside the straightening iron. Of course my best friend married my boyfriend. Of course my boyfriend shared my love letters. What did I expect? It's a mean world, and there's no denying how bad things can get. Marvin's daddy shot him dead. I want to walk down the street under the new trees in Detroit and tell Marvin I understand, to let his daddy go, that trouble doesn't last unless you hold on to it. But that's not true. Trouble is always. He knew that. You know that. I know that music. This opens with an epigraph. I'm thinking of Sister Rosetta Tharp with that guitar slung low on her hips. Up above my head, I hear music in the air. I hear music in the air. So when Sister Tharp swings that guitar on her hips, I know what she's rocking for. I've been lost in that music, fell down on my knees. Women in white gloves wrapped me in a sheet, took me in their arms and let me sway to their rhythms while I sobbed. Some say the Lord had taken me. My father was proud I got happy in the church. But I didn't speak in tongues. I had no visions. I had my troubles, already too much for my young and narrow shoulders. I had my cross to bear and my music. The music took those planks, and I was for a few moments free of this world and of you. It was no heaven. My heart was racing too fast for that. Not serene nor joyous, but it was weightless. I couldn't see your judgment. My face was a lyric everyone was singing. Is there a finer beauty? When my father realized it was not the Lord, but something else, he remembered his disappointment in me, the way so many do when I am not what they want or the way they would have me be. If I were possessed, it was by that blue note that captures suffering and squeezes it like a maid's dish rag, slaps the water from the fiber against those hips, that anti-melody that knows you best and loves you even more. My mother died since I've been here at Dartmouth. She died 4 years ago. The way I grieve is to read this poem. I've worn it 3 days in a row. The dress my mother died in, no, the dress I was wearing when my mother died, and I took pictures of myself. No, of the dress, of my legs curled tight under the dress, only my ankles and feet showing. I held my arm up and back and did not want to show my head, my swollen eyes and chapped lips, and all that dried salt on my face. My face she could not bear to look at unless it was with disgust. My hair, never good, no good, and my unironed dress, this one I am wearing now, with its white cotton underslip and its red embroidered paisley upon a white background. It is beautiful, even with me in it. Yes, I am not wearing a hat. She said, "You look so ugly in that hat." It was my favorite one of 3 hats. She had more than 100 hats stored in her basement, in labeled hat boxes. They were her particular thing. Every Sunday, a new one, perched proudly as a bird of paradise, though only the males are so presentable. But she was a tomboy once, and so was her mother. She hated my teacups and my dollies that I couldn't sleep without, like I slept that day when I found out she had died. I lay fetal upon the bed, atop the duvet, and wanted to live, and felt guilt like a razor over the wrist. You always were odd and carrying on. You talked too much. You were a mess, and I was a mess. My chest wet and my heart shrinking in, and I was shrinking, and this was good. She was always a small woman, except for 10 years, when she grew past what her small frame could hold. Who can say why her hunger grew, and why she hated my hunger to be held, and so recoiled? And I went days and days without any touch at all, and I have gone days and days since, ugly in my hat. Even my father thought so, though now he isn't sure. Since she died, so much has changed. Even this dress, now stained by wear and coffee and crying, and now the pills won't let me, and now and again sleeping in it. And just last night, keeping it on for dinner alone at the same counter where I was when I found out she had died, a few minutes after our last phone call, when she couldn't see me and so could afford to love me. I'm going to end with a poem that I'm going to dedicate to my husband, Matthew Osman, Chimera. And it opens with an epigraph by the poet Jamal May. She's not maternal, she's dangerous. Now here's the interesting thing about that quote. I've never met anyone maternal who wasn't dangerous, right? Okay. But I don't know, he said it and I felt it and I wrote it down. I have no charms, admittedly. No gold comb can move through this mane. My skin is not translucent, mine is a tale to fear. I know. And though a mother may destroy, she can see fit to create beauty as well that would eventually grow into forms I would swallow if I gave in to my hungers. Nothing will come of this womb, but up from my wounds, from the cuttings, up from this goat's body, up from my wood-smoked lungs, from the milk of me, comes a song, a melody to open your wounds and lick them clean. I would like to thank several people for tonight. I'd like to thank Sam, Jordan, and Jam for all they've done for me. I'd really like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Johnson for coming up here from Mississippi. I really can't believe it. And the band, man, so hot. Play at every party, please. I'd like to thank Hotel Coolidge, Wicked Barbecue, Still North, Allie and Still North, they do such a marvelous job. The Vermont Humanities, Leslie Center at Dartmouth. And I wanted to thank Mr. Briggs for allowing us to use this space. And I want to thank my husband who keeps me sane enough to do this kind of thing. And for my friends who are here, I feel so much love right now. I'm overwhelmed with it. And I like being ferocious and hard, but it's not how I feel right now. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the night.
I hope everybody will stick around. We've got another set of Robert Johnson blues, and then we're going to have DJ music dancing after that. We can push some chairs back if you want to dance to this set of blues, eat more barbecue, eat some cupcakes, have more to drink, and thank you for being here.